So Google does a very poor job at identifying if a campaign on YouTube is working well over a longer period of time. So just know that there is a lot more that you're seeing behind the scenes, but hopefully this gives you some tips to look at and some trusts so that you can count on. It doesn't make sense to not track brand and to look only at click-only data inside of Google for your YouTube campaign to say, well, that didn't work, I'm going to shut it off. You're going to stop 3 feet from gold, and now you can't get into top of funnel because it's too expensive. It might not be. You just might be looking at it incorrectly. This is more of an advanced strategy. Really good marketers can't fully grasp this idea. Hey everyone, John Ryan here with Solutions 8, and today we're going to be discussing, are YouTube ads really working for you? Google's going to say no, but in reality, it's yes. So that's what we're actually going to be diving into a bit here is Google is mainly a click-attributed network, which means that unless there's a click, it's really hard for Google to actually identify even the view-through conversions. Google themselves has even stated that the view-through conversion attribution inside of Google is not that great. It's one of the reasons why they came out with data-driven attribution, is because data-driven attribution will actually append a view to a conversion, even if it doesn't come through Google Ads, as a click-through conversion, which is really interesting to think about because it's a click attributed network, but the data driven is like, well, this campaign actually did do a lot of work. It did bring that new customer. So even though they didn't click on it, but they might watch the ad 6 times or 5 different video ads 6 different times, and then Google the brand name and clicked on an organic listing and converted. If you have your tag installed using Google Tag Manager, the Google Ads conversion tracking rather than Google Analytics, you're actually going to see conversions that are coming in through YouTube, even if they're not click attributed. So Google does a very poor job at identifying if a campaign on YouTube is working well over a longer period of time. Now, we do have third-party tools such as Norping that I'm going to be discussing today to prove this model so that you don't necessarily need Norping, but what you're going to want to take a look at is a few metrics that are important to identify to make sure that your YouTube ads are actually performing well. So that's what we're going to get started into today. I'm going to blur the screen on a lot of things because unfortunately we're using real client data today, and I want to keep that client name confidential. But I also want to share with you the strategies that we use in order to make sure that this is worthwhile and it's worth the investment. And some things to think about: CAC versus LTV, cost of acquiring a new customer, and the lifetime value of that customer. So this is a way for us to really kind of make sure that the YouTube ads that look like they have a bad ROAS is actually performing for you. And I think that this is more of an advanced strategy. Really good marketers can't fully grasp this idea. And it's not to kind of say toot our own horn. We had to have a third party tool tell us this and prove the model that we use. But your typical agency or even your typical ads manager in-house may not be thinking this way. So hopefully this is a way to kind of identify a CAC versus LTV model, the missing click attribution that Google has that is not giving your top of funnel campaigns like YouTube or even Discovery full credit that they deserve. So let's dive in. First thing we're going to look at is this is a company that we're running a top of funnel YouTube campaign for. We're spending $1,000 a day. So it's a fairly sizable campaign. And since June 6th, you can see here that we've actually spent $31,724. Now, the only two campaigns that are going to be blurred or that are not going to be blurred out is the branded campaign right here and the YTTOF, which is YouTube top of funnel -Soleil. So these two are going to be not blurred, so I can share these with you. But the rest of the campaigns here are going to be blurred. Just know that there's a ton of Performance Max that's down here. So just so if you're curious, there are a bunch of Performance Max campaigns. A few interesting things. When we started the YouTube top of funnel campaign, this actually went live. If I go on a daily look here, we started this on June 17th. Now, June 17th started, and we've already started to see some conversion value that's coming in. Now, you'll see that's coming in at sort of a loss, like cost $1,000, conversion value $207, $984, $327. We had one day we spent $992, made $915. Now, know that these are actually low AOV conversions. They're actually usually only about, I would say, on average, $20 to $25. So the ROAS is going to be nearly impossible for these to be ROAS positive, like above like a 2 or 3x. That's not the goal though, and I'll share with you how you track what's actually happening. So we do have some, you'll see conversions like 5 conversions, 10 conversions, 15 conversions, 9 conversions, 11 conversions. Take some time to ramp up, take some cost to ramp up. If you imagine $1,000 a day from the 17th to the 3rd, you're talking, 15 grand. So it's not an inexpensive, it's not an inexpensive channel. It's very expensive, but there's way more that you're not seeing here, and I'll share with you what that is. Just know that they take a bit of time and then they ramp up well. Now I'm going after a YouTube similar audience, a placements, a keyword, and an in-market all by themselves. So I can at least get a few things. What is the view rate? You can see the YouTube similar audience, not doing that well. The placements, doing really well. The keywords, not doing well from a view perspective, but these are actually delivering me a really good return. So a 13% view rate on in-market, but it also sold the most. So things that you have to kind of take into consideration and then dive a little bit deeper. But I would highly suggest that you break out your ad groups and then subsequent targeting underneath that. I can't tell you what the keywords in the end markets are. That's kind of proprietary to this client, but just the structure still stays the same. Like having your YouTube ads broken up individually when you're talking about e-commerce. I usually like to use a YouTube TrueView for action. So it's going to be a conversion campaign that's running on maximized conversions. Now you can use a target CPM or target CPP model. Let me actually make this bigger here. You can use a CPM and CPP model. Those are good. Those will give you a really wide reach. But what Google is not taking into consideration is the potential for that person to convert. That's really important to understand. I want to impress upon a person at the top of funnel, someone that is closest to the bottom of the funnel of making their decision. It's kind of an oxymoron, but if I just said, hey, are you alive, and can I show you an ad? Yeah, I could show you two for 2 cents. I'd rather show a 10-cent ad to a person that's alive. It also is interested in the product in the future that I know that they're looking to purchase maybe in the next 2 to 3 weeks. It's really important to choose not just a cheap audience, a high intent audience. It is more expensive, but it will come back in more ways than you can imagine, which is what normal agencies don't track. So when we're looking at the bidding strategy, don't go for the cheapest top of funnel. Go for the most relevant top of funnel. It is a little more expensive, but it is worth it. So what's interesting about this, though, is that on June 17th is when these ads went live. Now, let me switch over to the brand campaign here. Again, these here are going to be blurred out. My apologies, just because it has the name of the client. These are going to be blurred out here because it has the name of the client. But what you notice is June 17th is right here. And what you look at is the cost and the conversions. Now, I've been trying to spend $5,000 a day in this account, and I haven't been able to do it. I haven't been able to do it since March. Now, I have been spending a good amount of money. It's been about $1,000 a day, and then it started to ramp up to $1,300. My YouTube ads went live on the 17th, and you can see, if you look at the branded traffic, the only thing that we did differently is just start to spend more on YouTube. But it went from spending, $700 or $7,000 getting 600 conversions to $9,000 getting 666 conversions a week before we launched. Right after we launched, it went up to $15,985. Then it had a small dip here of $17,000 spent, 828 conversions, 15,000, 1,000 conversions, 18,000, 1,200 conversions. So you're starting to see how this is ramping up really well. Why is this happening? Well, YouTube is saying it's not doing that well. Getting a 0.2, 0.3 ROAS, it looks pretty terrible. When you look at the video campaigns here, we're getting a return on ad spend that's pretty much, let's grab that conversion or that campaign here. That column converted value by cost. So ROAS, essentially right now, I'm getting a 0.22. That's terrible. That looks horrible, right? 0.22. That's bad. Cost per conversion is pretty much abysmal. When you look at the CPA, it's $231. Oof, that's bad. Now, this client has a really good LTV. It's above 200. So right now, I'm break even, but that's not great. You don't want to CAC an LTV that's equal. Then it's just shut out that campaign, reallocate it. It's not going to do really good.
This is not a glitch. I'm interrupting the video you're watching because I need to remind you that I'm always looking for people to join our team. So if you're passionate about Google Ads and you want to work with the best Google Ads agency on the planet, please go to solate.com/apply. Speaking of working with the best Google Ads agency on the planet, if you're having trouble with Google Ads and you want professional help, that's what we do. You can go to solate.com, that's SOL8.com, to apply for your free, no obligation action plan. And if I've given you any level of value at all, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. That's how we juice the YouTube algorithm so they actually know that I know what I'm talking about. If you have questions, comments, concerns, or confessions, hit me below in the comments. And now, back to your regularly scheduled program.
your cost of acquiring a new customer always should be lower than the foreseeable LTV that you want to spend into. If you have a year-long LTV, you don't want to spend your year-long LTV on the cost, because then you spend $200 to make 20, that turned into 80, that turned into 140, that turned into 200, then they leave. Congratulations, after a year, you made zero. You just shipped out all of your stuff for no profit. So bad idea, but that's not what's happening here. This is something that we look at on a different basis. We already know that our brand campaign is making more money than it spends, which is good. But it's also scaling up really well. So if we look at the increase, if I just take from June 20th as an example and say, well, what is my cost and what is my revenue? I'm looking at $70,000 in cost, $227,000 in revenue. Now that's a $17 cost per conversion and 4,000 conversions. That's good. But again, it's brand. But when you look at a tool like Northbeam, what we're looking at here, I'll move it over there. Again, this is going to be blurred out here on top, but just know this is the client's name. But what you won't see really here is something called clicks only attribution model. So this is the last 7 days. And if we look, let's put the columns in order. If we look at the spend and revenue, it says pretty much what Google says. It shows $6,896 in spend and $2,599 in revenue. Now this is coming in mostly from this YouTube top of funnel. So YTTOF Select, same campaign. Now that 0.33 is not good. But what if we count the click and the views? Aha, now we're seeing, okay, so we spent 6,896 and we have 4,682 at 0.68 ROAS. That's normalized already out to a 0.72. So 0.72 is a lot better than 0.22 in Google. It's not great, but it's looking better. And you'll see that my cost of acquiring a customer, now this is not new, this is like CPA, cost of acquiring a customer, whether it's new or returning, is $66. A lot better. That's a lot better than the $230, whatever it was that Google said. And now I have 100 transactions this week just on YouTube for a $66 CPA. Now let's go one step further though. Let's break it out between new and versus returning. Now we know that this is a top of funnel campaign. that's obvious. Now what you're looking at here is the difference between revenue first time, ROAS, and then CAC, and then revenue, and then ROAS, and then CAC returning. So CAC first time is $86. So what this really means is I have a $6 CPA and $86, not of that, but $86 out of the blended spend is only to new customers. So what's cool about this is I'm using a top of funnel campaign that has gone through the path of converting, whether they converted through Google Ads or they converted somewhere else, but it is a brand new customer. And now my cost of acquiring a new customer is $86. Cost of acquiring a new customer is $86. When you have an LTV of over 200, the cost of $86, that's great. That's a much, much, much better ROAS than what Google said. Google said you're breaking even over the course of a year. This one said you're going to triple your money. So you have a 300% ROAS after you actually take a look at everything. Why is Northbeam showing me this? Well, because those people do come back through the brand campaign after they viewed an ad. Wow. Well, if I'm trying to spend $5,000 a day and all of a sudden I went from $1,000 a day and spend to $3,000 a day and spend, and my ROAS has stayed the same, and now I'm netting a lot more money, how much of that is attributed only to this one YouTube campaign versus everything else that we're doing, like Performance Max and Discovery, etc.? This one, in the grand scheme of things, is resulting in an $86 cost of acquiring a new customer. So it's 3 times cheaper than what Google Ads says. Why? Google Ads is click attributed. What does that mean? Based on your attribution model, it's not going to give you too much attribution over to YouTube campaigns because it's not taking into consideration the view through conversions that much. So we're looking at CAC versus LTV, and you're looking at what is a good campaign. YouTube is amazing, but it looks like it sucks inside of YouTube. So looking at a third-party tool, just knowing that if you have good metrics, which is what we're going to talk about next, you can depend on that doing better. How do you measure it without third-party attribution tool? Look at your organic, look at your direct, look at your email signups, and look at your brand spend. I know brand spend is a lot of times a bad word. It is a good use of the tool if you're also looking at other things like, are my YouTube campaigns resulting in people Googling the brand name? That's obviously a very good, important thing. It doesn't make sense to not track brand and to look only at click-only data inside of Google for your YouTube campaign to say, well, that didn't work, I'm going to shut it off. You're going to stop 3 feet from gold, and now you can't get into top of funnel because it's too expensive. Might not be. You just might be looking at it incorrectly. So hopping back into the account, though, Here's some things to look at. When you're looking at your video campaigns, you're looking for, yeah, there we go. Fixed it. So you're looking at a few things. One is view rate. One is click-through rate. View rate and click-through rate. You want to identify your videos that are above a 22% view rate and a 0.5 click-through rate. Those are what Google is going to try to optimize first. Conversion rates are good. Conversions are good. They're going to be seldom because Google does bad at tracking. But what you want to do is, if you're using data-driven, is it is going to give a little bit of credit to YouTube when it needs to, when it thinks it should, even though it should more often. But that little bit of conversions, when you're using true view for action over time, you're going to start to see it hone in on exactly where it needs to go. That's one of the reasons why in the last 7 days, my cost went down 0.7, but my first time revenue went up 15%, and my cost per acquiring a new customer is now down 30% week over week. And I've only been running this 4 weeks. That's a large drop down. That's really, really good. When we first started this thing, I was at 178. Why? Because it took time to get them to warm up, then come to the brand campaign, then buy. So when you're looking at the campaigns here, you want to look at view rate. So 22%. Failed, pass, failed, failed. Interesting. When you're looking at the NARPing data, we're looking at the same type of information. What are we looking to see in terms of revenue that's coming back through the brand? Well, we can see that it is a in-market, good MER. Similar audience, good MER. Keywords, really good MER. Placements, even better. So now placements have a really good MER, which is a ROAS. And placements here is one of my least spending, but it made the most. Makes sense. So this is even showing a good ROAS here at 1.06 for placements. That's decent. We see 0.18, 0.08, and 1.8. So in-market and similar audience are identical. In-market, similar audience, a little bit different. You're starting to see a $67 CAC and an $84 CAC. But are they above the goal? Well, let's look at the click-through rate. If you look at the click-through rate here, 26238852. This is interesting now. 8852 keywords in market. 8852. Well, let's look at keywords and in market. So in market, good. Keywords, good. So 0.5 click-through rate goal. What is that? That's the goal. Now, the MER is easy to get to this because I didn't spend that much. So this is kind of an inefficient way to measure this when you're looking at ROAS. But we're looking at CAC. Above goal here of 88 and above goal of 0.52. So YouTube keywords, YouTube in market, both above the click-through rate goal. YouTube keywords, that's a really good conversion rate, 8.46, really low CAC, good. What's the other good one? In market, that's also above goal. In market, that was a good, again, good conversion rate, good CAC. So 67, 64. What was the loser? Similar audience at $84 CAC. What does similar audience look like? 0.26 click-through rate, below goal. What we found is that when it's above a 0.50 click-through rate and you have a good watch rate on top of that, it performs well. The slight issue though, the view rate and the click-through rate, when those two are above 22% and a 0.5, those are really good indication that that's working. Google won't really report on it, but it sees it. It's going to start to increase the ad spend that's going to those, and it's going to start to refine, start to work well. So just know that there is a lot more that you're seeing behind the scenes, but hopefully this gives you some tips to look at and some trusts so that you can count on. Obviously, if a good brand, if you have a good audience and you have good videos and you have something that is, people want to buy, don't try to just sell like on the left sock. People like two socks mostly, so it's a bad idea. YouTube is not going to solve that for you. But if you're looking at just some good marketing sense, like, hey, it's a good video to a good audience, good click-through rate, good view rate, trust the process, you will start to see good results, even if it just comes through the brand campaign. But remember where to look and remember how to measure. Hopefully this is a good video for you. Hopefully you've learned something. Hopefully you can kind of take that back to your campaigns and say, wait a minute, I was going to pause it, or I just paused it, or I'm going to look deeper now. What are some things that we can start to extract out of our YouTube campaigns that actually give us some good data, and then measure that against your CAC and LTV company-wide, really. And even look at how your overall cost of acquiring a new customer on those channels, or and your overall cost of acquiring a new customer starts to go down and starts to get more volume, even though the YouTube campaign looks like it's bad. So thank you very much. I'm John Moran with Solutions 8. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.
Scott, from the Daily Google News, and I'm here with my buddy Hector, who is the best podcast producer I've ever known in my entire life. Hector, you're the producer on Perpetual Traffic.